Hey everyone, Ram Spiro here. You're watching Buying Old Fundamentals. It's another multifamily Sunday. I did manage to get back early enough this week to be able to record this episode rather than putting out some general fluff. And if you remember from last week, we were looking for the first time, at least for me, we were looking at a multifamily property in Milwaukee. And we'll continue doing that, either this one or other ones, coming Sundays, as I learn about multifamily evaluation and investment, something that's very interesting to me, but I know very little bit about. So, what have I done? Since last week, I talked to the real estate agent that represents this property. I've asked for leases, tax information, anything else to back up claims as far as the NOI being net operating income being produced by this property, so that I could start evaluating it and let her know if I'd be interested in spending any more time looking at this property. Obviously, from the moment I reached out to her, she wanted me to call her and talk to her and come and see the place. And basically, my response was, show me the evidence, so that I can even decide whether I want to look at the place. I think that probably helped because she sent me what she calls a cap rate worksheet, and after a little bit of back and forth, she actually sent me copies of all the rents, of all the lease agreements, and the tax forms from last year, as well as stating that she'd changed the cap rate, and that sort of set off a light in my head. And basically, what she'd done was added the maintenance cost of $1,800. She claims that the owner manages the entire place himself, and that he's put up aluminium walls, and there's a new roof. Actually, newer roof, meaning that it's probably been changed the last 10 years. And from the way that she's talking about appliances, there's probably some deferred maintenance there, but not that much, at least as far as she claims. What was interesting about this, about her comment that she'd adjusted the cap rate, was that she seems to be extrapolating the cap rate as a function of the NOI, the net operating income, and the sales price, as opposed to the cap rate being something that you extrapolate from the market, and then apply that to the NOI in order to determine the sales price. In a minute, I'll show you what that allows us to do. So I've taken all of her projections and put that into the sheet. I've got to zero these back out, and that came to 1.7. The purchase price of just shy of $1 million, the rent from all the units, and she's provided enough evidence that I believe that that's the current rent, $8,875. Property taxes, insurance, the $1,800 in, was it 18 or 1,600? Hold on a second. 1,800. $1,800 in repairs that was done last year. The utilities, that's garbage collection. That's not really landscaping. It's electricity, probably for the hall lights or whatever, or the outside lights. And another 1963, which was for garbage removal. Anyway, we now have an NOI of 77,512, which closely mirrors the one that she was quoting. I think we're off by $10. And that gives us a cap rate of 8%. Now, because of what she said about calculating the cap rate, we can actually use that to our advantage. So she's come to the conclusion that the cap rate for this property is 8%, which is fine. I'm going to write that down on the side. But now I'm going to apply what I believe are additional factors that are going to impact the net operating income. At the moment, we're talking about 77 and a half a year, and I think that's way too high. I don't care that she claims there's no vacancies. Vacancies are going to happen, and I'm calculating for vacancies. The current owner might be managing the property. I'm not going to, so I've got to add property management costs. Repairs might have been low, but I'm going to use my underlying assumptions of 10% for repairs and 10% for capex annually. And now we have a very different looking NOI. It's gone from 77,000 to 38,000. You'll notice that the cap rate's changed, but we're actually going to use her assumption of cap rate and calculate the value, because she was holding that as a constant. And the one thing I've learned about valuating multifamily properties is that the value of the property is a function of the NOI and the cap rate, and not the other way around. Meaning she's treating this a little bit like a single-family home, when she should be treating this as a commercial deal. So what happens when you take the NOI and you divide it by that 8% cap rate? You get to a different value for this property, which comes out at 481 and change. And that's what this place is really worth. If you were to talk to her and the owner, that's going to be your max offer, and you should probably start at offering them $350 in order to get to 400. I would say, and they're probably, I mean, with what they're asking for, I think that they're probably not educated enough to understand that what they're offering isn't competitive. But maybe by showing them the numbers, they might think differently. Although it's entirely possible that the owner bought the property for too much money and now is not going to be willing to let go. So that's what we've learned about looking at, that's at least what I've figured out by looking at the numbers. And it's an interesting part to how evaluating multi-family properties, commercial properties, how that's different from single-family homes. Much still to learn, and we'll be back next week, where either we'll dig further into this one, or I'll look into some more comparables, comparable properties as I figure out the ins and outs of this particular kind of analysis. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow when I'm back analyzing another 20 properties for buy and hold.